89.5 kpoo San Francisco and kpoo.com. I'm your man DJ X1. You are in tune to the Bombay Mix. And right about now, we got special guests online with us, Sister ZaZa. How you doing, sister?
Peace, King. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Honor to have you on the show. Now, I know mostly everybody that's listening right about now know who Sister ZaZa is, but for those who don't, could you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well, I am a native of Oakland, California, so shout out to all the Bay Area listeners. I am a former co-host of Enemy Minds Radio with Professor Griff of Public Enemy. I did that for about 1.5 years, as well as some other traveling and speaking engagements around the country. I wrote my first book, Black Matters, The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs. It was released last year. And that book deals with the scientific war on black or melanated peoples around the world, specifically in America. And I'm also a mother, self-published author, organizer, activist, public speaker, and just sister from around the way, you know, who saw some things that I was not satisfied with in Oakland, in my community, and wanted to do my part to make a change.
Righteous. Now, I'd like to start off by talking about the murder of our brother Alton and Philando. And, you know, this been happening for the last, I say, 1.5 to 2 years. Now, it's so many brothers that's getting, you know, murdered by the police. What's going on with all these murders with our brothers around America?
Well, you know, there is a psychological war that is taking place, that has been taking place for some time now in this country. Since Barack Obama's, you know, coming into presidency, it has definitely magnified the racist connotation, if you will, of some people in this country who really, whether they have a valid reason or not, don't like our people. And of course, we know that black men have always been public enemy number one. So they tend to realize the brunt of that hatred and that vitriol. So part of it is Barack Obama coming on the scene and you know, taking the highest office of the land in the White House. Now, we have to understand, when I say the psychological war, that simultaneously, while we have a black man and a black family in the White House, we've also had a very high number of slave movies being put into mass media as well as in movies. So it is showing a very different and far-reaching representation of black people, from being a slave to being, you know, the highest office of the land. I remember I was watching what movie? I went to go see 12 Years a Slave in the movie theater, and I'm all shaken up from the movie. I'm crying, you know, I'm extremely overwhelmed. When we were walking out of the movie theater, white people were leaving the theater, and they, you know, they were jolly, happy, you know, good, like, okay, what's for dinner? And I'm not saying all white people had the same response to it, but I'm saying that, you know, Malcolm X said once that when you sit down and you talk to a white man, understand that there are two different languages being spoken. He's speaking a language and you are speaking a language. And I'm telling our people, and anyone listening to this, that there are two different conversations being had when we are speaking to the system of racism, white supremacy. So it is those things. It's also, you know, the dissatisfaction around this country is at an all-time high. And, you know, we have a tendency to pick on, you know, the weak among us when we are dissatisfied and when we are angry. And because our people have, whether we realize it or not, we've been very passive in standing up for ourselves, and in not only with white on black crime, but with black on black crime as well. Like, we have not taken a definitive stance for our love for ourselves in this country. So, you know, automatically, you know, police officers, whether they have orders or whether they're just doing it because they're frustrated, the first ones to take their frustration out on is black men. Black men are the most marginalized, disenfranchised, and disrespected people in this country, you know, and black woman the black woman is a close second. So I think it's all of those things combined that play a role in that.
Now, I was looking at the video of Brother Philando when he got shot, and I was really upset. You know, I was highly upset when I seen the video, because I'm like, well, why did the officer shoot at the brother? The brother got his hands up. He let him know, I got this, I got that. I'm about to reach and get this. And minute he reached for his wallet to grab his ID, he gets shot. I mean, what can we do to avoid incidents like that?
Well, You know, we could look at the video of Oscar Grant. You know, it's the same thing, you know, and it's it's been 7-8 years. It's like this same thing keeps happening. I think for us, it is extremely important, you know, if we understood the power of our minds and how we really, literally, when we are living right, we can move people, places, and things around. Some people are going to hear that, and I've tried to have this conversation before. Some people it resonates, other people it's just rejected outright because we don't think that we have power to control the circumstances in our lives. But I bear witness to being able to navigate and finesse situations where they don't escalate to a point where you end up dead, or to a point where it just has to, you know, escalate to something beyond your control. I think it is very important for brothers to understand how to interact with police officers. You know, a lot of times we put ourselves in precarious situations. I know the brother Philando, I think he ended up, when they searched the car, he ended up having weed in the car. And of course, that's not a reason to, you know, to kill him. Not at all. It's, you know, like weed in a lot of places in this country is legal at this point. But just being mindful of how we carry ourselves, how we interact with people, and being able to deal with police officers, not from a fearful position. A lot of times when you approach someone who may already be a loose cannon, like a lot of these police officers are loose cannons. Like, you know, they're not mentally stable. They're walking around with guns on their waist that are filled with lead. And of course, lead has a very negative impact on the neurological aspect of the human being, to where it is making them more prone to violence. So you're dealing with someone who may already be a loose cannon, who's dealing with violence all the time, and who may not be mentally stable. You have to know how to disarm that type of person. So not interacting and engaging them from a position of fear, I think, is the most important thing for us. And this is why we need brothers in the community talking to and interacting with our men, brothers who have martial arts backgrounds, brothers who know, you know, the science of the mind and the science of self, where you know, are not dealing with a person as a victim, but you are dealing with a man as a man. You know, that's a totally different conversation being had, and it's a different dynamic.
True indeed. And I was really disturbed with how they did Brother Alton. We in the Bay Area, we sell CDs all the time. You know what I mean? We go down to Amoeba Records over in San Leandro, sell our CDs. You know what I'm saying? Us here in Frisco, we downtown slinging our CD. That's our hustle. You know what I mean? Because, you know, some of us don't have jobs or don't want a job because of certain circumstances. But that's our independent hustle, and our independent jobs to go out there and sell CDs, in which a lot of time it be our own music. You know, so now that makes me feel like they kind of stopping our hustle. They don't want us to go out and make money like an independent vendor.
Well, yeah, and part of that is it. But the other part of it is that, you know, if you're a real hustler, can't nobody stop your hustle. You know what I mean? It may be a situation where we need to start switching gears, and maybe some of those brothers who are going out to these different spots and selling CDs, maybe you might want to start looking into getting a little mom and pop shop, you know, a little hole in the wall or something where you can actually have people to come and get your stuff. Like, just kind of regrouping and doing what's in your best interest so you can still get your hustle on. And of course, you know, being able to engage the people, but at the same time not becoming a victim of that. And like I said, if you know, what you focus on expands. So if you worried about police jacking you, and if you worried about police, you know, having to deal with them when you're doing your business, then yeah, it's going to become more of a reality. But if you carry yourself with that mindset and with that swagger internally, that internal swagger, like, I know I'm good, I'm on my square, I'm handling my business, you know, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to come towards you. It doesn't mean it won't, but it just means, you know, just don't let nobody get in the way of your hustle, and just know that you know, you're doing the right thing and where you're supposed to be.
Now, a lot of our youth are getting very frustrated over a lot of what the police is doing to us. And my opinion, I think that kind of led to Brother Michael Xavier Johnson, to what he did over in Dallas. Now, the media kind of portrayed him as a terrorist, you know, and some people say he's a hero, but, you know, I say he probably just a brother that just had enough of seeing the police brutality around the nation, and, you know, just took action to his own hands and did what he felt he had to do. But what's your intake on that?
Well, you know, I still am not convinced of Michael's guilt. And I say that saying that, you know, I believe that there is a much larger scheme at hand in the background that is moving people towards a race war. So I am not convinced that he, number one, if he was the killer, that he acted alone. If he didn't act alone, was he, you know, provoked, or was he, Were there people working behind the scenes that fostered this whole situation to take place? Like, I'm not convinced at all, and I say that because I study, you know, the science of the way that these people in control operate, and I see the bigger picture. It's not just this one shooting in Dallas. It's been leading up to this, and then the simultaneous activity of the presidential election and Donald Trump, you know, fanning the flames of racism, and, you know, all of these recent shootings. We've had brothers coming up, you know, being hung around the country, and it's not really making the news, but there's a lot of things that are happening in the background. So I'm going to go on record and say that I'm not even convinced at this point that it was him, and if it was him, that he acted alone. With that being said, absolutely, you know, there's only so much that people can take. And let us not be, you know, we need to make sure that we know that when they show these killings, well, I talked about psychological war earlier, when they are constantly showing these murders over and over and over and over, you know, you see Philando in the car with his blood and his child in the background, like they're showing this over and over and over on the news. Like, why do you need to keep doing that? They didn't do that when there was a mass shooting at Sandy Hook. When you're dealing with people who you are trying to be more empathetic towards, you don't constantly show their murder on screen, but they're constantly showing these murders because it is having a psychological impact on people. So they know that there is a possibility that somebody's going to snap. Absolutely, that's human nature.
Yes.
That's absolutely human nature.
Yes. And a lot of the young people are, you know, trying to take things into their own hand. And I really commend them on some of the things that they're doing, like they did out in Baton Rouge. They actually did a boycott on the mall. And would a boycott work for us here in America? Because I had discussions about this, and some people say as we boycott, it's good, but where are we going to buy our product from? Because we own nothing.
Well, and that's a great point. And I think boycotting is a step in the right direction. I want to underscore this, it is not the solution, but I do think it's a step in the right direction. What it is, it's a defense mechanism. And our problem is that we are always on the defensive. It's time for us to take the offensive. So if we're boycotting and we're taking a certain amount of money out of the pockets of white corporations, that money has to be reallocated in founding and starting up and supporting black businesses. It's not just about, you know, supporting black businesses as they are now, because we don't produce the things that we need. We need laundry detergent, we need tissue, we need, you know, socks, we need paper towels, we need shoestrings, we need, you know, cleaning supplies, we need all of the different things that it takes to live, the necessities. Most of those things we don't produce. So if we're going to stop shopping at Walmart and Target, we have to give our people another avenue. Otherwise, they're going to boycott today and then they'll be there next week. True. So it's important for us when we talk about boycotting. Boycotts, I personally think we should refine our language. I think we should stop using that term because, well, first of all, it's something that takes us back to, it started, its inception was back in the 1960s. And secondly, boycotts end. They're temporary. We have to start talking about a way of life as a people. We have to identify the businesses and the infrastructures that are already set up that create the things that we need, not want, but need. And then we need to create a dialogue about the things that we actually need that we don't produce, so that the money that we're taking from boycotting can be funneled into creating and producing those businesses so that we can be producers opposed to just being consumers.
And I do believe an aftermath from the boycott have started, because within the last 2 weeks, it's been, from what I know, over probably about 1,000 some African American been moving their money out of the banks and actually put them into African American owned banks. And I didn't really know we have so many African American owned banks until I started doing a little research myself. And I see we got One Nation over in LA and just a bunch of banks all across America. So I really commend, you know, a lot of our people actually taking their money out the banks and putting them into black owned banks. And really, I got to give credit to that to Brother Killer Mike, who kind of put that in the forefront by, you know, mentioning that.
Absolutely. Killer Mike, he and Usher did a video where they you know, basically made it a point to say that we should have a goal of having 1 million brothers and sisters go out and open up accounts with black banks. Also, some of the Houston rappers, I want to say Scarface, it may not have been him, but there were some Houston rappers that did the same thing. There's been a big influx in the black bank accounts open in Houston. I think this is also a great step in the right direction. What I will say is that, you know, we have to remember that black banks are governed by the same laws and regulations, if you will, that all banks are. So, they're still regulated by the FDIC. They still have underwriting guidelines for loans. They still have stipulations for you to be able to get an account. So I think that it's important for us, and Killer Mike, who spearheaded this movement, to make sure that we are holding black banks accountable. We should start seeing more small business loans. We should start seeing money being recycled in the community through the black banks. And I know that they have, black employees and whatnot, and that's a beautiful thing. But there has to be a reciprocal relationship between black people and black banks. It's not just about us having our money there. What is the benefit for black communities now that we are putting our money into black banks?
Sure, indeed. And I also feel that a lot of these, so-called celebrities and, the Oprahs and the Russell Simmons and all these should step up and start, starting banks themselves for us here in the community, because they have the resources to do it. It's just, why are they not doing it? But I also, want to commend, Brother Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wayne, and LeBron James for actually stepping up and speaking out about, some of the things that have been happening around America. And I know they're going to pay a price for that, and I know they probably, realize that. But what is your intake on them actually speaking up on what's been happening to our youth?
Well, I think it's a beautiful thing, and I commend all of those brothers, because there's always a price to pay when we speak, truth to power. All of them in their own regard, are powerful brothers, who are out here, who are well known, who have global recognition. I will say this, there has to be action behind them speaking up about it, because the difference between them and a lot of us is that they are actually financially, not only financially, but just in their in the respect that they have around the world, they are in a position to actually make change and do things that we can only talk about. So those four brothers alone, if they actually decided, okay, we want to start a shoe brand, we want to start a a clothing brand, we want to open up some sort of business, they could literally start a manufacturing sector. Why can't they go to Detroit, which was predominantly a black and well-maintained city? How come those brothers can't say, okay, well, we know that poverty breeds hopelessness. We know that Detroit is a city that's on the brink of just totally collapsing. It's already collapsed. White people are going in and trying to rebuild it now. Why can't they go in and purchase one of those dilapidated manufacturing buildings where they used to produce cars, and start producing clothes, start producing basketballs, start producing, things that any people actually use, and start to give our people jobs. To whom much is given, much is expected. And those brothers, because they have the notoriety and the money that they have, and what's the word I'm looking for? The notoriety would be the right word. Since they have it, they have to use that. It's not good enough to just have it and to make a post on Twitter or on your social media page and talk about it. You have to actually back it up with your resources in order to change people's lives.
Now, let's talk about your book. This is your first book. I believe you have a DVD also with the book.
I do. I actually have several DVDs that kind of go over my work. But Black Matters, the first book, The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs, it does have a DVD, that accompanies it, and it's just dealing with everything from genetically modified food to chemtrails to HARP. To organ trafficking. I think that I want to underscore the point, especially me being here in Oakland. I would say about 10 years ago now, I started noticing these really weird clouds in the sky. And at first I thought they were just contrails from planes, but then I started, to notice that they were affecting the sky. And I was, we live in the Bay Area where we have some of the best weather in the world all year round. But I was starting to notice that the sky would be white. Not cloudy, not sunny, but it would be pitch white. So, I started paying more attention, observing, doing some research online, and I started to find out that there were very toxic particles being sprayed into the upper atmosphere, trying to control and navigate the weather. So when we talk about global warming, anybody who's talking about global warming and is not talking about geoengineering and chemtrails is not really qualified to speak on the subject, because global warming probably does exist, but the real true culprit of global warming is absolutely chemtrails. They are blocking the sun out, and they are maintaining a certain temperature on the planet, and controlling the weather, or manipulating the weather, I should say. So that, organ harvesting, we had the brother Kendrick Johnson show up in Georgia, with his organs totally removed from his body. His body was stuffed with newspaper. I mean, there's been instances where hospitals around the country have been found where they were selling skin tissue and body tissue on the black market, and people not even realizing that they're going in for a skin graft, and then they come to find out that their skin is being sold on the black market. So that crack cocaine, I think crack cocaine is probably was the most important thing for me growing up here in Oakland and trying to decipher why, my family was being taken out by this drug. I couldn't understand why it was so prevalent in my community. Well, there's a science behind crack. Where did it come from? Where was it created? And why does it have such a staggering effect on black people in particular? So I wanted to answer all of those questions. So those are some of the things, lead poisoning in water, fluoridated water, Planned Parenthood now, was found that they were selling skin tissue from aborted fetuses and whatnot. Like, there's a lot of things happening in the underbelly of America from a scientific perspective. So I tried to go to the heart of some of those things in my book.
Now, how long have this book been in the making? Because I know sometimes, people have to live and then write certain things from their life into the book, or just life in general. So, how long did it take you to put this book together?
Well, this particular book, my original book was, there's going to be 3 volumes, but the original book, I just put everything together, and the scientific intervention in our affairs was one aspect of that book. But because it was so important, and I really, once I had a couple of people read it, they said this could stand alone. It was kind of like a different take than the rest of the book. Like book 2, which is out now, the Plagues of Dysfunction, which is coming out now. Plagues of Dysfunction is dealing with male-female relationships, is dealing with some different things, and so. Book 1, I would say, it's more research heavy, it's more statistic and more information heavy. The other books are really kind of more from my heart. I would say that book in totality took me about 1.5 years to write.
Now, how can people find your books and your DVDs?
My website is www.zazaali.com. That's ZaZaali.com. And I'd also appreciate it if everyone, of course, I want you to purchase the book, but to go to the contacts page and fill out your name, your contact information, phone number, and whatnot, so I can add you to my email list so we can keep you abreast with not only what's going on with me, but just the broader aspect of the work we're doing for the people.
Now, we are worldwide online. Is there any place that you're going to be speaking at nationwide, someplace in America?
I'm working on a workshop in Charlotte, North Carolina coming up. It's going to be a workshop for sisters. 2 days. Our dates at this point are September 3rd and September 4th. And it will be a two-day workshop where we're basically just working with sisters, dealing with a lot of different topics, what we talked about today, as well as many other things, business funding, business credit, male-female relationships, parenting, things like that. That's going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's actually going to be an ongoing event. We're going to take that around the country. I've also been invited to speak at a retreat in Houston, August the 21st and the 20th and the 21st, I believe it is, but I haven't received the final information for that. So if you just check my website, upcoming events, as everything gets scheduled and gets confirmed, you'll be able to find information there.
Well, Sister ZaZa, I want to thank you so much for calling in, lacing our audience up with information, and for letting them know what's up with your upcoming book, Black Matters.
Thank you so much, brother. Like I said, you can go to my website, purchase the book, ZaZaali.com, and just stay abreast with what's happening. I have a lot of projects that I'm working on right now. We have a Sister Cipher fundraising group. We also have a group that does fundraising for African center schools across the country, and we're working on several other projects. So if you just, like I said, go to the contact page, put your information in, and as things get more solidified, I like to talk about things when they're up and running. I don't like to talk about things when they're, when I'm just kind of formulating it. I want to hit the ground running. So if you send me your contact information, we'll keep you abreast so you can stay involved. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, we want to be involved, but we don't know what to do. We're trying to set some things up where it's concrete and it's something that you can look at and say, okay, I can see it, I can feel it, I can touch it. I want to be a part of this, and we'll move forward like that.
89.5 KPOO San Francisco and kpoo.com. You have been listening to the voice of Sister ZaZa Ali. Make sure you go pick up the book, Black Matters, and go to her website and just get updated on everything that she's involved with. Once again, Sister ZaZa, thank you for calling in.
Cool. Peace, King.
Peace.